Imagine this. You're standing at the summit of a mountain you've spent your entire life climbing. Every inch of the climb has been brutal. Sleepless nights, sacrifices no one saw, compromises you told yourself were temporary. You reach the top, expecting triumph, clarity, maybe even peace. But instead of a panoramic view and a sense of accomplishment, you find another mountain, taller, colder, and more crowded than the last. The air is thin, the silence deafening, and in that silence, one question begins to echo: why doesn't this feel like success? You turn around, expecting applause, admiration, something, but no one's watching, no one cares. Not really. Your achievements are invisible to the world that promised they'd matter. You begin to wonder, was the summit the point, or was it just a mirage carefully placed to keep you climbing? You remember the rules you were taught. Go to school, get good grades, choose a stable path, work hard, be disciplined, stay productive, network, hustle, optimize, achieve, accumulate, repeat until satisfied. But what if the satisfaction never comes? What if the very definition of success you've been sold is a phantom, a construct designed not to empower you, but to tame you? Think about it. From the moment you could walk, your value was tethered to performance. You were rewarded for sitting still, for reciting answers, for following instructions. You were praised not for your wonder, but for your compliance. Somewhere along the way, the fire of curiosity was replaced by the cold mechanics of competition. The dreamer was smothered by the achiever. Why? Why were you never taught to define success on your own terms? Why does success so often feel like anxiety in a suit or burnout behind a smile? You've hit the milestones, the degree, the job, the promotion, maybe even the house, and yet you lie awake at night feeling like something's off. Something vital was traded along the way, and you can't quite name it. Is it possible, just possible, that everything you were taught about success was a lie? Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, but a lie so intricately woven into culture, education, and identity that it's become indistinguishable from truth. You were told success was the reward for hard work. But have you noticed how many people work brutally hard and still feel empty, unseen, irrelevant? You were told success brings freedom, yet the more you achieve, the more responsibilities tighten around your throat. You were told success means stability, yet every economic downturn, every technological shift, every algorithm update threatens to erase what you've built overnight. And here's the darkest irony of all. The more successful you become by conventional standards, the harder it becomes to admit you feel lost. Because you're supposed to be the example. You're supposed to be grateful, to be proud, to not question it. But the questions keep coming, don't they? What if this whole game is rigged to reward conformity, not fulfillment? What if the institutions that define success, school systems, corporations, media, are less interested in your liberation than your utility? What if the very metrics of success are chains masquerading as trophies? You weren't born to fit a spreadsheet. You weren't designed to be optimized. You weren't meant to chase numbers on a screen while your soul withers in fluorescent lighting. You were taught to succeed, but were you ever taught to feel alive? Because there's a difference, and no one ever told you what it was. That tension you feel, that haunting dissonance between what you were told to want and what your bones know you need, is not a personal failure. It's a signal, a crack in the illusion, a moment of lucidity in a world drunk on performance. So ask yourself, What if you climbed the wrong mountain? What if everything you were taught about success is not only misleading, but deliberately so? What if the ladder you've been climbing was leaning against the wrong wall all along? And what if the real definition of success is something far more dangerous, beautiful, and difficult than anyone ever dared to teach you? You're not alone in this questioning. Across the globe, people are waking up in boardrooms and bedrooms, in the quiet of their own disillusionment, realizing they've been chasing a script that doesn't fit their soul. The truth is, waiting. But first, we must dismantle the myth, because you can't find real success until you uncover why the false version was built in the first place. Let's go deeper, shall we? You were never meant to ask questions like these. Not out loud. Not in the open. That's part of the design. You see, the most effective prison is the one where the inmates don't realize they're imprisoned. And the most enduring illusions are the ones you learn to defend as truth. From your earliest memories, success wasn't a question to explore. It was an answer handed to you, branded with authority, reinforced by tradition, and laced with silent threats of shame, should you dare to deviate. But where did that answer come from? Let's trace it back, not to economics or policy, but deeper, to the hidden architecture of human psychology, to the subterranean spaces where identity is formed and fear is stored. Carl Jung once wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Now imagine an entire society built around not accepting oneself, but instead performing identities curated for approval. School conditions you to be a product. Work demands you be a brand. Social media trains you to be a spectacle. And somewhere along the way, your real self, the self that wonders, aches, rebels, and dreams, goes dormant. Because it's safer that way. Safer to be praised for doing what you're told than to risk exile for living what you feel. The real tragedy, you start to believe this performance is you. Nietzsche warned us about this, about becoming mere echoes of collective values. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he speaks of the last man, a creature who avoids risk, comforted by routine, shunning depth, choosing safety over meaning. This last man is not evil. He's not malicious. He's just asleep. Does that feel familiar? You wake up, you go to work, you chase deadlines, and somewhere deep inside, a voice asks, "Is this it?" But instead of answering, you drown it in productivity apps, caffeine, shallow affirmations. Because to hear it clearly would mean confronting everything. The root of the problem isn't laziness or entitlement. It's spiritual amnesia, a forgetting of essence, a slow death of authenticity beneath the crushing weight of shoulds. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, who penned Man's Search for Meaning, observed that modern man's suffering is not rooted in hardship, but in meaninglessness. We are overfed, over-entertained, over-connected, yet we starve for purpose. And this hunger, this aching lack of orientation, is no accident. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, painted a civilization where people are pacified not by tyranny, but by pleasure, by distraction, by comfort. The citizenry is numbed into compliance, not with whips, but with entertainment and shallow satisfactions. Sound familiar? We were taught that success is a cure, that with enough wealth, recognition, or validation, the ache would stop. But what if success, as defined by society, is not the cure, but the cause of the ache? Think about how success is measured: external results, visible accolades, quantifiable progress. But the soul does not care for metrics. The soul craves meaning, depth, beauty, connection. When success becomes a substitute for these, you end up with a population of high-functioning, hollow individuals, externally impressive, internally bankrupt. And this hollowness, it's contagious. Parents pass it to children, schools reinforce it, advertisements exploit it, companies monetize it. And beneath all of it is a quiet desperation, a yearning for something real in a world obsessed with appearances. But why does this system persist? Why do we continue to chase what we know leaves us empty? Because illusion is addictive. There's a seductive safety in playing the role. When you conform, you're rewarded, you're accepted, you belong. And belonging, as social psychology shows us, is a biological imperative. To challenge the script is to risk exile from your peer group, your profession, even your own family. So you stay quiet, you stay in line, you keep climbing, and the system smiles. You are manageable, predictable, profitable. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of bad faith, the act of lying to oneself in order to avoid the anxiety of true freedom. That's what most of us do, isn't it? We pretend the promotion will make us whole. We pretend the right partner will complete us. We pretend that staying busy means we're not lost. But deep down, we know there's a difference between being productive and being alive, between playing a role and having a soul. And yet, it's terrifying to step outside the narrative, to face the void, to ask, if I no longer chase their version of success, what do I chase instead? The tragedy is not that we chase false success. The tragedy is that we do it so well. But what happens when the cracks begin to show? When burnout becomes chronic? When anxiety becomes baseline? When joy becomes a distant memory? Most don't question the system, they question themselves. Maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. Maybe I'm being ungrateful. Maybe I need more coaching, more optimizing, more hustle. Number what you need is truth, and truth is rarely convenient. It demands you unlearn. It asks you to face the buried questions. It calls you back to the place you abandoned, your own aliveness. Because here's the reality. No one can define success for you. No algorithm, no degree, no guru, no parental expectation. Real success begins when you stop performing and start listening. But to listen, you must first recognize the noise. The noise of a culture that confuses busyness with purpose. The noise of a system that profits from your self-doubt. The noise of traditions that shame your uniqueness in the name of conformity. The noise that drowns your soul. And so the question becomes, how much of your life is truly yours? What beliefs did you inherit without inspection? What definitions did you accept without resistance? What dreams did you trade for security, status, and social approval? And if you could silence the noise, what would you hear? Who would you become? The system won't answer that for you. But the next stage of your life might depend on you finding the courage to. And to do that, we must confront the ripple effects of this myth, the damage it inflicts not just on individuals, but on entire cultures. Because when a society chases the wrong definition of success, it begins to fracture, and you are not exempt. So now we must look at the consequences, the ones hidden in plain sight. You might think the cost of chasing a false version of success is just personal, missed joy, chronic stress, vague discontent. But you'd be wrong. The consequences ripple outward, silent and corrosive, until they redefine not just individual lives, but the entire fabric of a culture. And most never notice, because we've been trained to see the symptoms. not the source. We medicate the burnout. We normalize the anxiety. We glamorize the hustle. We even monetize the pain. But we never ask the question that threatens to unravel it all. What if this entire structure is designed to keep us unwell? Look around. You see a generation drowning in mental health crises, while simultaneously being told they're more connected than ever. You see children crushed by academic pressure before they've even discovered who they are. You see adults sleepwalking through careers, marriages, entire decades, checking boxes, earning titles, collecting things they don't even want for people they don't even like. And you call this progress? Let's step back. Consider the cognitive biases that keep the lie alive. The sunk cost fallacy tells us to keep climbing the wrong mountain because we've already come so far. I've put in too many years at this job. I can't start over now. Sound familiar? That's not reason. That's fear wrapped in logic, confirmation. Bias makes us interpret every moment of discontent as a personal flaw, not a flaw in the system. Maybe I'm just not motivated enough. No, you're not broken. The script is. Status quo bias whispers that it's safer to stay miserable in the familiar than risk the unknown. So we choose the slow death of conformity over the existential terror of reinvention. Neurologically, your brain was never built to thrive in this environment. The constant notifications, the endless comparisons, the fetishization of productivity. It hijacks your dopamine system, flooding you with momentary highs that mask deeper hunger. And like any addict, you start needing more for less, more likes, more money, more credentials. But none of it touches the root, because the root isn't external, it's existential. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote that wealth is like seawater. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. Apply that not just to money, but to validation, to success itself. Every milestone you reach just moves the goalpost. Every accolade you earn becomes yesterday's news. The appetite never ends because the hunger was never for those things to begin with. We are starving for something deeper, meaning, belonging, wholeness. But those don't fit neatly on a resume. So instead, we overperform and underfeel. We sedate our restlessness with noise, scrolling, binging, achieving. And then we wonder why intimacy feels impossible, why silence feels unbearable, why joy feels like a memory instead of a companion. This is not a malfunction. This is the intended result of a culture that values output over essence. And it's not just personal. A society that chases false success becomes incapable of wisdom. When short-term gain replaces long-term meaning, we prioritize growth over sustainability, productivity over presence, appearance over authenticity. We bulldoze rainforests for quarterly profits. We sacrifice family for promotions. We glorify leaders who win at all costs, regardless of what they've become in the process. Look closer, and you'll see it everywhere. The executive who hasn't seen his children awake in weeks. The student curled in a bathroom stall, shaking with anxiety before an exam. The influencer who smiles online while slowly collapsing offline. Each one is a casualty of the same invisible war, a war not fought with weapons but with expectations, a war against the soul, and yet the system remains intact because it's built on our compliance, not enforced by chains, but by consensus, by silence. The most dangerous lies are the ones we pass on without questioning. We tell our children, do well in school so you can get a good job, never asking if a good job is even a life worth living. We reward people for staying late at the office, not for setting boundaries. We say, follow your passion, while quietly shaming those who do and fail. And somewhere in this madness, the authentic self is exiled. Jean Baudrillard, the postmodern philosopher, wrote about simulacra, copies of things that have no original, a society where signs replace reality. That's what success has become, a simulation of meaning, a performance of fulfillment, a hollow shell made to look golden from the outside. But you feel the emptiness inside it. You always have. Every moment of unexplained sadness after an achievement, every pang of guilt for wanting something else, every strange sense that time is passing and you're not really living it. That is your soul resisting the lie. That is your truth trying to surface. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets, until the symptoms escalate. The job you once dreamed of becomes a cage. The relationships you built on shared goals feel alien. The very life you fought to build becomes unrecognizable. And then, in the quiet, the terror sets in. What if I've built my identity on someone else's blueprint? What if I've mastered the art of success and lost myself in the process? There is a point where disillusionment becomes a gift, a crack where the light gets in. But only if you stop numbing it, only if you listen. Because real success, the kind that doesn't collapse under scrutiny, demands a confrontation, a reckoning, and reckoning is not comfortable. It requires dismantling, shedding, unlearning, but from that wreckage, something else begins to emerge. Not a better version of the old script, not a more efficient hustle, something entirely different, a new compass. And those who dare to follow it, they don't just succeed, they redefine what success means, which brings us to the turning point. The moment rebellion begins, not as outrage, but as awakening. Because now that you've seen the trap, the only question left is, will you keep walking it, or will you break free? So, what now? You've seen the lie. You've felt its weight, the ache beneath achievement, the fatigue behind the mask, the quiet dread of realizing you've done everything right and still feel like something vital is missing. This is the threshold, the place most turn back, because crossing it means stepping into the unknown. It means betraying the version of yourself the world rewarded and saying yes to the self you buried. This is not a self-help moment, this is a rebellion. But let's be clear, rebellion doesn't always look like revolution. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like stopping, saying no, asking why, refusing to continue the performance, even if no one else is watching. That is where it begins. Rebellion is the moment you stop asking, what should I do to succeed, and start asking, what must I become to be whole? This is not the rebellion of tantrums or tweets. It is the rebellion of depth in a culture of surfaces. The rebellion of authenticity in a world that profits from your disguise. And here's the paradox. The path to real success, the kind that leaves you nourished instead of depleted, often begins with a kind of failure. Failure to meet expectations you never agreed to. Failure to impress people whose approval you no longer need. Failure to follow rules that were designed to make you a stranger to yourself. This isn't about abandoning ambition. It's about rewilding it, unleashing it from the chains of conformity and letting it chase what sets your soul alight. Start with a question. Whose life am I living? If your answer makes you pause, good. That's where the work begins. You see, the world doesn't need more high performers. It needs more awakened souls. People who've dared to dismantle the myth and build a new story, not with blueprints, but with blood, with wonder, with truth. But how? Let's strip it down. Step 1. Dismantle the borrowed dream. Write down everything you were taught success means: the job, the house, the reputation, the social media presence, the lifestyle. Then ask, do I want this? Or was I told I should? Repeat until the answers are raw, until the noise fades and a strange, unfamiliar clarity emerges. Step 2. Redefine wealth, not in dollars, in depth. Wealth is the ability to wake up without dread, to create without self-betrayal, to sit with silence and not flinch, to belong to yourself, even in rooms that don't understand you. That kind of wealth is built in quiet hours, in difficult conversations, in choices that make sense only to your soul. Step 3. Practice dangerous honesty. This means telling the truth even when it costs you comfort. It means saying I don't know when the world demands certainty. It means honoring your inner voice when every billboard screams the opposite. This is the kind of honesty that breaks spells. Step 4. Find your sacred number. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every connection is nourishing. Not every success is worth your soul. You cannot create a true life until you learn to say no to the false one. And this kind of no is not selfish. It's sacred. It's how you make space for what's real. Step 5. Study the lives of those who disobeyed well. Read about people like Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the hell of Auschwitz, about Nietzsche, who was mocked in his time but planted seeds that shaped the future, about Frida Kahlo, who painted her pain and turned it into beauty, about people who chose aliveness over approval. Notice a pattern. They all walked alone before they were seen. That's part of the rebellion, the willingness to be misunderstood, to walk without applause, to risk seeming lost, only to find a deeper compass. But there's more. The deeper rebellion is not just personal, it's relational, communal, cultural. When you break free, you don't just liberate yourself. You become a mirror, a threat, a permission slip. Your aliveness reminds others of their numbness. Your truth disturbs their comfort. Your joy makes their resignation unbearable. That is why this path is lonely at first, but it won't always be. There are others, quiet radicals, secret dreamers, people who are building new definitions in the shadows. Find them, speak honestly, share your maps. These are your people now, and when you stumble, and you will, remember this: falling is not failure, it's data. Every collapse is a revelation. Every heartbreak is an initiation. Every time you lose the script, you find a little more of your voice. The old path promised safety, but safety is not the same as aliveness. Aliveness is risk, mystery, tenderness, wonder, grief, ecstasy, creation. Aliveness cannot be optimized or monetized. It cannot be given to you. It must be claimed. And the moment you claim it, you shift from being a character in someone else's play to becoming the author of your own myth. This is the real rebellion, becoming real in a world addicted to the fake. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't have to burn your life down. You just have to stop living the life that's burning you out. Start small. Whisper truth where there was once silence. Choose rest where there was once hustle. Seek wonder where there was once cynicism. That's how it starts. That's how the system begins to crack, not through rage, but through reclamation. You are not here to fit in. You are here to wake up, to shake the dust from your soul, to redefine what it means to win. And as you rise, remember, real success is not about arriving. It's about becoming. Every moment, every breath, every choice to live by your own definition. You are not late. You are right on time. The script is crumbling. The rebellion has begun. And next comes the truth that changes everything. Let's pause. Breathe. You've come a long way, not in miles, but in mirrors shattered, in veils lifted, in truths unearthed that were buried so deep, even your dreams stopped looking for them. And now, there's only one place left to go, beyond the rebellion, beyond the deconstruction, beyond even the question of success, into the very heart of being. Because here's the final, most disorienting truth. Success was never the point, not the real kind. Imagine this. You wake up one morning and every ladder you've been climbing vanishes. No titles, no trophies, no audience to applaud. What's left? Are you still someone, or were you only ever the sum of your striving? This is the question the world avoids. The question that strips us of our costumes and leaves us trembling in the rawness of our humanity. And yet, within that trembling, something sacred waits. Because when all definitions of success fall away, what's left isn't emptiness, it's freedom. The freedom to simply be. You see, the deepest lie wasn't about money or fame or legacy. It was the belief that your worth had to be earned, that you were not enough just as you are. From the moment you were born, the world began whispering, prove yourself, earn your keep, justify your existence. And like a good student, you obeyed. You became what they asked. You performed. You achieved. You adapted. Until one day you looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. But what if that stranger isn't the real you? What if the real you is the quiet presence beneath all the noise, the one who's been watching, waiting, whispering all along, the one who never needed to be more, only to be free? This is the truth most fear, that there is nothing to prove, no race to win, no role to perform. Because once you taste this truth, everything changes. You stop chasing significance like it's something outside of you. You realize you were never meant to climb a mountain to reach yourself. You were the mountain, the peak, the horizon, all along. You begin to understand what mystics, sages, and philosophers have tried to name since time began. That you are not your resume. You are not your reputation. You are not even your story. You are the stillness behind the story, the awareness beneath the thoughts, the presence that remains after every success and every failure fades. Call it soul, call it consciousness, call it being, it doesn't matter. What matters is this: it is already whole. There is nothing broken, nothing missing, nothing wrong. All the striving was a dream, all the noise a distraction, all the ambition a longing to remember what was never lost. You weren't trying to become someone. You were trying to return to yourself. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the integration of the self, the reclaiming of all your disowned parts. It is not about becoming more. It is about becoming you, unfiltered, uncompromised, untamed. And once you feel that, truly feel it, everything else takes its proper place. Success becomes a tool, not a master. Work becomes expression, not identity. Relationships become sacred mirrors, not performances. Time becomes a canvas, not a countdown. Even suffering becomes meaningful, not something to escape, but something that deepens you. Viktor Frankl understood this. After surviving the Holocaust, he realized that man's deepest need is not happiness, but meaning. And meaning is not found in ease. It is found in truth, in love, in purpose, even in pain, especially in pain. So what does this mean for you? Here, now, with everything you've just seen. It means the game is over, the one where you hustle for your worth, the one where you trade authenticity for acceptance, the one where you keep waiting for a future version of yourself to arrive and finally be enough. There is no future version. There is only this moment, and this moment contains everything, if you dare to see it. Because the deepest rebellion is not to change the world. It is to see the world clearly, nakedly, lovingly, to see yourself, not as a project to be fixed, but as a presence to be lived. You are not here to win. You are here to wake up, to taste your coffee like it's a poem, to laugh with someone you love until your chest aches, to cry without apologizing, to create things that scare you, to rest like it's holy, to love like nothing else matters, because in the end, it doesn't. That's the real truth, the one they can't sell you, the one no algorithm can engineer. Success isn't something you find, it's something you remember, and once you remember, you stop living like a character, you start living like a soul. And suddenly, the entire world changes. Not because it's different, but because you are, and that changes everything. You don't have to believe me. Just close your eyes, breathe, and ask yourself, what would my life look like if I no longer needed to prove anything? Hold the answer close. It's the map back to yourself. It always has been. Now, go live it.